Hey Jennifer, do you remember that Wayfair sex trafficking conspiracy?
Yeah, they were like selling cabinets with girls in them, right?
Hello and welcome to Moms for Book Liberty.
The podcast where a couple of moms fight back against groups trying to control what our kids can read.
With each episode focusing on a specific book that has found itself on the chopping block of censorship. So I remember the first time I heard about Wayfair, it was like the middle of COVID. Of course, everyone's just sort of like stuck at home. And so, all these things, rumors are like, spreading like wildfire on social media. And I don't know, like I turned to my husband and I was like, did you hear about this? And he just looks at me like, are you seriously falling for that right now?
Well, no, I mean, we have daughters, so,
Yeah.
we worry about stuff like that. I know I was sending like screenshots to my kids and
Oh
like,
my gosh.
watch out,
Yeah, like don't, yeah, like what do you mean? Like don't sell yourself on Wayfair? No, but yeah, the weird thing about that conspiracy was like there were some things on that website that were just ridiculous amounts of money, like $12,000 for like a locker.
Ugly, like
Right,
lame,
yeah.
cheap locker.
Like why I don't get it. Either way, so it kind of like made people think it was real. And there were like pillows that were ridiculously expensive too.
Just the most random things.
Yeah. And like, I mean,
And they all had girl names, right?
yeah, they had girl name. It was like, here's a pillow named Ashley for $500. Like, are we sure? I don't know. And so, in the little research that I did, there was not there was no one person responsible for this conspiracy. I do recall thinking, like, reading somewhere that like someone was fired from Wayfair for like hacking or something. But like, the bottom line is, girls were not being sold in lockers.
No, it was just rumors that snowballed
Right. And just kind
into a
of,
big conspiracy.
right, just like Pizzagate.
Yes.
Yeah. So what was that? The 2016 presidential election with Hillary Clinton. Right?
And I don't know much about it. I just know that people thought kids were being like
It was,
murdered in the basement of a pizza parlor.
yeah, and the pizza parlor was in DC. It had this like crazy name. What was it called?
And people drank their blood to stay young.
Yes.
Crazy shit like
Yes,
that,
yes.
right?
These conspiracy theories are crazy. So it's called like Comet Ping Pong. And essentially, like high level Democratic officials were involved in a child sex trafficking ring based in Washington, D.C. Clearly, this is a conspiracy theory. It was debunked by media outlets, government officials, and even independent investigators. But like this is like where, it's no longer a funny conspiracy theory or no longer a joke anymore because like real harm actually came from this conspiracy, right?
Yeah. Someone got shot, right?
Or someone, he claimed to be an independent investigator. He claimed to like, he was going to save these kids in this like make believe, not real sex trafficking ring. And so he went into the pizza place and fired with a rifle and fired shots, claiming that he was like, trying to save the kids. So like that's just an example of how these conspiracy theories like that are started by people on Reddit and Twitter like can really result in real harm.
Well, yeah, and we're seeing that even now with the books that are being challenged. Last episode, we talked about All Boys Aren't Blue, and I follow them on TikTok, the author, and they were just mentioning that they were harassed at the airport, followed around by this fanatic that was just, wanting to push his views on them. And,
That's terrible.
yeah, someone else had to step in and was like, I'll walk you to your gate
Yeah.
because the guy just would not leave them alone.
Oh, that's terrible. See, that's just like, when people are standing up here saying, well, I'm just trying to protect my kids. And it's like, not really. Like you're encouraging hate, hate speech. You're encouraging, like just an environment where people just don't even feel safe, speaking their views. And it's not as harmless as these moms for liberty people saying, well, we're just trying to protect our kids from porn. Well, no, what you're doing is you're laying this false narrative that first of all we want to give kids porn, which we don't.
No.
Like we don't want, like the book that we're going to talk about in this episode, is for high school.
Right.
And yeah, we don't want to give it to kids. Like when we say kids, we're talking like 15 and up.
Right.
When they say kids, they're talking like 5 to 15. It's like, no, certain books are appropriate for certain ages, but it's really causing a lot of harm.
Yeah, and they're vilifying these authors, teachers, media specialists.
Yes.
And so this is what we're going to see more of is these, and we've seen it at the school board meetings where parents are like, if you put this in front of my child, I'm going to do this to you. You're not going to like it. All these threats already happening.
Yeah, and it's caused one of our wonderful media specialists who, I'm not going to say their name just for privacy reasons, but like anytime I was in this library, there were kids all the time. And actually I was there to like paint a mural. So I was there a lot, right? And every time I was there, it wasn't a quiet library. It was like bustling with kids who were reading books in every corner, or they were working on projects together. They were like interacting with the adults and, having discussions about like which books they should read or about books that they've already read. And, it was just such a beautiful environment that I was really looking forward to sending my kids to when, when they got old enough. But guess what? That media specialist took a different job because of, the banning of the books and they're sick of it. And it's no longer a fulfilling career, which is really sad.
Yeah, it's horrible. We're losing qualified educators left and right.
Yep.
And I don't know them that well, but I've seen, we're in like similar parenting groups. And when they announced that they were leaving, like the amount of parents that came on and were like, "Oh, my kids loved you. This is such a loss for our school."
Yep. And I can guarantee you, the replacement is not going to be near. I don't know who the replacement is, but they're huge shoes to fill.
Yeah.
Huge. And
good luck to you.
And I know, right? And that's because of groups like Moms for Liberty, making. And George in their TikTok goes on to say like teachers, media specialists, authors, like watch your back. And that's just so sad to have to say something like that. So
it's tragic.
So check out George's TikTok where they explain their latest fiasco, which so sorry that happened. It's just terrible. But back to sex trafficking, it's kind of ironic because in like 2019, DeSantis passed a bill that required that students be educated about sex trafficking.
Yeah, K through 12. So not just high school.
Which I agree with.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't agree with him often, but here I did.
Yeah.
And he actually said, tragically, human trafficking is an epidemic in our country. And in Florida, especially, we're like number 3 in the nation.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So it's an issue we definitely face here.
Yeah. And, I have a kindergartner, and she is coming home with, I think once a week they do something about safety. And I'm sure this is a part of this curriculum, but it's stranger danger, stuff like that. Secrets are bad. Here's the difference between a good secret and a bad secret.
Yeah.
So kids actually, know if an adult approaches them and it's I have a secret, you can't tell anybody. Then, the kids know, you can't trust strangers with secrets, So, just kind of basic stuff like that. But as you get older, once you get into high school, you can't talk about stranger danger with kids anymore. The conversation evolves into something that's a little bit more mature.
Right.
And that's where books like Sold by Patricia McCormick come into play. Because in my opinion, as a teacher of 10 years, as a high school teacher of 10 years, books, fiction or nonfiction or, novels or not, are really effective means of educating our students about important topics. And sex trafficking is one of them.
And it helps you build sympathy again for the characters or for the people who deal with this. And I just think it's really funny because the Moms for Liberty chapter here that filed the challenge on this book, she kept saying things like, "Oh, this is a book in India. They live in huts. What does it have to do?
What does this have to do with America?"
Yeah, like we don't have sex trafficking here.
You can't just pretend these bad things don't exist.
And there's hope in the book because even though all these horrible things are happening, there's still good people around. That they're having horrible things happen to them too. But they find community and friends and build friendships and that help them get through these horrible things.
I've dog-eared so many pages in this book that have to deal with hope. Like the recurring theme in this book is hope, and how, the main character, whose name is Lakshmi, and we'll get into that, but she's a 13-year-old girl, and she never gives up hope.
No.
But yeah, before we get into it, we have, what does she call herself? A real mother of liberty?
A real mother of liberty.
Yeah. And she's 100.
She's fantastic. I mean, she's
100 years old.
Inspiring.
And she, she went to this school board meeting in Florida, and she was protesting against all the book bans. And we're going to play you this sound clip. And I think it's just best to hear what she has to say.
I am 100 years young. I'm here to protest our school's district book banning policy. My husband, Robert Nickel, was killed in action in World War II. At a very young age, he was only 26, defending our democracy, Constitution, and freedoms. One of the freedoms that the Nazis crushed was the freedom to read the books they banned. They stopped the free press, banned and burned books. The freedom to read, which is protected by the First Amendment, is our essential right and duty of our democracy. Even so, it is continually under attack by both the public and private groups who think they hold the truth. Fear of knowledge. Fear is not freedom. Fear is not liberty. Fear is control. My husband died as a father of freedom. I am a mother of liberty. Banned books need to be proudly displayed and protected from school boards like this.
That was Grace Lynn. She's a Martin County resident here in Florida, and she's the real mother of liberty, and she has spoken. And wow.
Yeah, and that's the kind of mom for liberty that I support.
Exactly. The true mothers of liberty that, remember World War II and remember, Hitler banning those books.
Yeah, and
she's 100.
She knows. She's lived through it. She knows this is wrong. And, I don't care what the lady at the last school board meeting said about Hitler banning books that, we're protecting children from pedophiles. We're not falling for that bullshit in 2023.
No, Hitler banned books by Einstein. He banned books that were in different languages. That's, the narrative that, again, these people are being duped by, I don't know, Reddit. I don't know where they get their news, but I truly believe that woman believed.
Oh, yeah, she definitely does.
Yeah, in her heart that, they were just protecting kids from pedophiles. No, that's not.
And it's the do your own research crowd that never does the damn research.
Exactly.
The information's there. I Googled. I wanted to see what she was talking about. I could not find a single article.
No, but I bet you could find all of the authors and works that Hitler actually did, burn.
Yes. Oh, and then I found out he was the groomer. Because he was dating 14-year-olds and 16-year-olds.
Yes.
When he was 30, 40.
Exactly.
Whenever he died, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Hitler's the original groomer OG.
Yes.
Oh, that's not
Which
funny.
is, it goes back to, it's always, they're always projecting. And
that's right.
They're the ones with the issue. Like, again, if you find an issue with this book, and at any point you're turned on by the book sold, you need help. Because this book is not something that elicits, those kind of feelings.
I want to quote one of our local journalists here in Flagler. He writes for Flagler Live. His name is Pierre Tristam, and he has been doing just a wonderful job at reviewing and recommending these banned books.
Fantastic at drawing attention to this issue.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and he just wrote a very wonderful article about the whole book, and there are spoilers in the article. So, and we're going to try not to spoil the ending of this book. We're going to do our best, but we want to encourage you to rent this from your library or to buy it, from wherever. Check our show notes for a link, and you can just click on the link and buy it.
Yes.
Right. But yeah, this is what Pierre said. To ban it is to be complicit in its perpetuation.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but the world isn't all rainbows and butterflies. I know we want to keep our kids innocent for as long as possible, but at some point we have to arm them with the tools to survive.
Exactly. Otherwise, their innocence will be stolen from them.
And we don't want that.
All right, so now let's just jump into the book, Sold by Patricia McCormick. It follows 13-year-old Lakshmi. She has a humble home in a small village in Nepal. She ends up getting sold by her stepfather, and the poor girl thinks she's going to be a maid and help support her family. And she still believes this. She's so innocent and naive that she still believes this right up to the point where she's got this disgusting man trying to force himself on her.
Yeah, and I think, this book is about, let's see how many pages. It's about 300 pages, maybe 270-ish pages long. And it's not until about, page 50 that, she realizes she's leaving her home. And so the first 50 pages are just her beautiful Nepalese village and living with her mom and her baby brother and her abusive stepfather.
Yes.
Right? And at the point where she realizes she's leaving, it just like Jennifer was saying, it kind of just really showcases how young she is. She's barely 13. I think she's still 12 at this point.
Right.
So here's what she says. Amma, which is her mother, right?
Yes.
Amma wipes her cheek with the hem of her shawl. Your stepfather has said you must go to the city and earn your keep as a maid. This news is like a tiny earthquake, shaking the very ground beneath my feet. And yet, for Amma, I stand firm. This is good news, Amma, I say, my voice full of a boldness I did not know I had. There will be one less mouth to feed here, and I will send my wages home. And then at the end of the chapter, she says, enough, I say, for a tin roof. Because they live in this hut with a mud roof. And every time it rains, the baby gets cold and then the baby gets sick and she's worried about her baby brother. And so she's, here she is 12 years old thinking she's going to go earn her keep and, send all of her wages home so that her mom can buy a jacket for her baby brother and a tin roof.
Yeah, and then the whole time, any kind of extra money that they make, her awful stepfather is gambling it away, losing it.
Yeah. Anytime they make money, her stepfather will get bought a motorcycle or something like that. And here you have a baby that doesn't even have a jacket. So Jennifer, why don't you tell us about some of the amazing awards this book has received?
So this book won the National Book Award finalist. It's a Publisher Weekly Best 100 Books of 2006, National Public Radio's Best Books of the Year 2006, American Library Association Top 10 List Best Books of the Year 2006, the Gustav Heinemann Peace Prize in 2009, Booklist 2006 Editor's Choice Award, New York Public Library Best Books for the Teenage, Children's Literature Council's Choice, and BookSense Pick.
That's a lot. And I think it did make the same award that George's book was on, which was the top most banned book, but not of 2020. So George's was 2020. This was one of the top 10 most banned books of 2017.
Yeah.
So
and it's making a comeback now in 2020.
Yeah.
Well, 2022.
Yeah. I mean, I never would have. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I never would have heard of this book had the local Moms for Liberty here in Flagler not have just campaigned against it so hard that when I was running for school board, last year, I had one of the Moms for Liberty ladies approach me and say, hey, she basically was I'll vote for you if you promise me to get rid of this book. And
really?
I was I had no idea I was let me read the book first.
Right.
So she, in her mind, thought that reading this book was harmful to them. And yes, it can be triggering, but I don't know, it just goes back to the whole thing. It's the world isn't sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
So you have to be prepared for the world that you live in.
And our high schoolers know what goes on. They know that their friends have dealt with abuse. And we've had like what, four of our high schoolers pass away from gun violence.
Yeah,
So
it's definitely. I mean,
they're not innocent,
exactly.
Unfortunately,
you can shelter them as much as you can, but like
that's the word, shelter.
Especially like, so think back to when we were teenagers. When I was a teenager, there was no iPhone. There was barely Google, but like you didn't Google stuff because you didn't have a laptop,
Right.
so like I had this like flip phone and like I couldn't get the news on it. Like I didn't know who Charles Manson was until I was like 17 years old. Okay. And I was like working at this restaurant and I was like, one of my coworkers was something about Charles Manson. I'm like, Marilyn Manson, the singer? And they're like, no, Charles Manson. I'm like, who's that? They're like, do you live under a rock? I'm like, well, no, but my parents have like done a really good job at sheltering me. That's not today, okay?
Right.
And today kids have iPhones, they have TikTok, they have everything. Like, I mean, they know the world isn't sunshine and rainbows.
They know, yeah.
So, but yeah, there's just I think even before before she realizes she's being traded as a maid, at the very beginning of the book, she meets who she calls Auntie, right?
Yes, like
and she's got like the gross teeth and stuff. Yeah. Oh, right here. Yeah. So she's at this festival. Another really beautiful thing about this book is like it gets into a lot of the Nepalese culture and the tradition.
Yes.
And so Amma and Lakshmi and the little brother go to the festival that honors the goddess Lakshmi, which is who she's named after.
Right, she's named after her.
Yeah, so they go and they honor the goddess at this festival, and like their whole village is there, right? And then at this village is Auntie. And spoiler alert, Auntie is bad.
Very bad.
Okay. And so this is just sort of like, this is like a cautionary tale even for parents. Like as a mom, I'm kind of sitting here like, oh my gosh, if I go to like a small town festival, like the Strawberry Festival or something, and my kids are off running around, like an auntie figure can be there, and like, that's what the whole stranger danger thing is about,
Here it's men with puppies and candy,
or get into my van and I'll give you some candy. Like that's a for real thing that we should be worried about, So yeah, this book is relevant. It's, even though we're not in India, we're not in Nepal, like it's still a relevant book that should be accessed by everyone.
Yeah, and I mean, how she got sex trafficked, it might be a little different than it happens here. Here it might be a boyfriend, that sweet talks you to get you into sex trafficking.
Yeah.
So it might be a little different, but the results are the same. The experience, of being assaulted by men and used in that way, that's the same.
Or men using women to manipulate you and to give you this like false sense of security.
Yes, because that happens too. Like in this story, it's an auntie, but sometimes they'll send like a girlfriend over, like, oh, befriend her and then bring her over to me. And in the whole report that they...
Moms Rule of Liberty.
Yes, thank you. That they use, they don't even bring up the stepfather and how he sold her the...
They don't have a problem with that.
They don't have a problem with that. They're okay with, the dad being the dad,
right,
running the house and literally controlling women, because we see a lot of that in this book.
Yeah. I mean, that's those are the family values that they want, is like the man is in control and the woman does what she's supposed to.
Right. And I can relate to that somewhat because I grew up with a father that's very machista or machismo.
Yeah.
In Latin America, we see a lot of that. So I grew up with that, and not to that extent, my dad wasn't going to sell me or anything, but, he had these gender roles. Women had to do what women do, clean and cook, and men can, get drunk and slap you around, and it's okay.
Right.
And I see that a lot in this book, so I related to that part of it, and it's just sad that, they don't seem to have a problem with that.
Do they have a problem with that doesn't make sense. So, but do they also have a problem with the chapter, or not a chapter, it's just a page called Police?
What page number is it?
So that's page 159. Because that's kind of like goes back to what you were saying, about the machismo.
Machismo, yeah.
Machismo.
Which is just, male chauvinism.
Yeah, toxic masculinity. Right. Which, so this page on Police, I think Lakshmi was thinking like, oh, the police are coming, maybe I'll be saved. So like her innocence led her to believe that the police were good.
Right.
Right. And I just wonder how...
No, it's not on here.
It's not on there. So
it's not on there.
Yeah. So, I mean, because to me, that's it's just concerning and sad, but it's reality, So let me just read a little bit from this page here. Tonight I saw a curious thing. Usually the men give their money to Mumtaz. What I saw tonight as I came downstairs was Mumtaz handing a fat roll of rupee notes to a man. He was dressed all in tan like the man at the border, and he had a gun on his hip. While the man was counting his money, Shilpa, the aging bird girl who spies for Mumtaz, spotted me and chased me away. Is that man a gunda? I asked Shahana. He's worse, she says. He is a policeman. I do not understand. Policemen are supposed to stop people like Mumtaz from selling girls, she says. But she gives this one money each week and he looks the other way. I don't understand this city. It is full of so many bad people, even the people who are supposed to be good.
Yeah, I mean, and we see that here. Mm-hmm. That happens here.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw a video. I'm sorry, I watch a lot of TikTok.
No, TikTok is great.
Of a guy literally yelling and being just awful to these teenagers inside their house. So he's on the outside.
Oh no.
He's like a biker gang type guy, because they had a inflatable pool that went into their neighbor's yard by like 3 feet.
Oh no.
And he couldn't be bothered to wait for them to move. He had to attack them. And there were cops on his side.
Oh no.
Not stopping him.
Really?
Even after he punched and broke their glass.
Are you kidding? I mean, I'm not surprised, because that's what happened at the protest, remember?
Yes, we see it.
Because I was wondering, why there were private investigators that were later trying to identify these protesters that we talked about in the first episode,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to go back and listen to that. But they were yelling at these kids, like homophobic slurs, and the policemen were just there to keep the peace, but they didn't tell them to stop. But then later, like fast forward a couple of weeks, private investigators were like, we want to find out who this was so we can press charges.
I'm like, too late.
There was a police officer. Like, why couldn't he just press the charges when he was there? And, I don't even know. Like, this isn't a podcast about, us hating police.
No.
Because we, not all police are like that. But, getting back to the book, like, she needed help. And so many times there were people that could have helped her, but they just were complicit.
She was let down by so many adults.
Yeah.
That she trusted to do the right thing, and they always...
So if anything, this book will help adolescents understand that just because it's an adult in a uniform, it doesn't mean that you can trust them.
Right.
So Jennifer's gonna read you like the most explicit part of this book, right?
Yes.
So, essentially, like, we already mentioned there's no vulgarity in this book. Like, not even, like, there's no cursing at all.
No.
Right.
And there's no detail of sex or anything like that, but obviously
It's
you
implied.
understand what's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely implied, but yeah, the language it was written in a really, like, subtle way.
Yes. And she even said it was written for children, so she was very careful with the language she used.
But when we say children, we mean like 14 and up.
Right.
Yeah, we don't mean 9-year-olds.
Right.
I feel like we have to clarify that every time.
I know. I don't understand why they think children...
Yeah. Like,
high schoolers are not going to be reading picture books anymore. Get over it. That's not happening.
These are PG-13 books, essentially.
Yes.
Right, yeah, and this is a PG-13 podcast. So go ahead and read the most explicit part of the book.
Okay, so it goes, he unbuckles his belt. Once before she sold Habib used goods. The fish lips man removes my dress. I wait for myself to protest, but nothing happens. Habib, he says. Habib is good with ladies. Then he is on top of me, and something hot and insistent is between my legs. He grunts and struggles, trying to fit himself inside me. With a sudden thrust, I am torn in two. Oh yes, he says, panting. Habib is good in bed. I hear, coming from a distance, a steady thud, 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 and register that this is the sound of a headboard hitting a wall. After a while, I don't know how long, another sound interrupts the rhythmic thud of the headboard. I know this noise from somewhere. I work very hard to make it out. Finally, I identify it. It's a muffled sound of sobbing. Habib rolls off me. Then I understand. I was the person crying.
So she's clearly disassociating at this point. And this is, I mean, we did say that, this is the most explicit part of the book and there is no vulgarity, but this was really hard for me to read.
Yeah, it's, obviously it paints a picture for sure. which is the point of the book.
Yeah,
you
that
have
is
to
the
understand
point.
that this is what happens. But it's not vulgar.
Yeah.
It's definitely not pornographic.
No.
Because porn is meant to excite you. This is not what this is.
No, this is not that at all. And wouldn't you argue that like the more passionate you can like make someone about caring about an issue, like the more likely that issue will receive the attention it needs to be solved.
And that was the author's intent.
Yeah.
She's trying to bring awareness.
If we just dull it down and make it so that it's, doesn't have those trigger warnings and like Will Furry said in the school board meeting, like what was he talking about? Was that his church, like a victim of sex trafficking came to his church and like...
Yeah, and she was able to tell her story without being vulgar or obscene.
Right.
And everybody was crying and they understood. I'm like, this book was not obscene either.
Yeah. And I wonder too, like how many of those people actually went and donated money to, what was that organization we mentioned? Deliverfund.org.
Yes.
Or something similar, like what my point is, like, the writing in this book by Patricia McCormick just does such a good job at inspiring you to care.
Yes, exactly. She makes you not fall in love, but care for these characters.
Exactly.
So you care about what happens to them. I cried when the David Beckham boy had to leave his home.
Oh, the David Beckham boy.
He was probably going to be better off because he wasn't in the happy place anymore.
The David Beckham boy is the son of one of the women in the
right.
house. Yeah. And then they all got kicked out because his mom was sick. Yeah.
Right. She couldn't perform anymore for them, so she was useless to them. So they just tossed him out.
And they were homeless.
With a baby. So, it shows how harsh the reality of their lives is, and that's important for us to know.
So yeah, I mean, that's this book gets a 5 out of 5 according to Moms for Liberty book report, which is like the worst rating you can get. Well, we give it 5 stars.
Right, so. 5 stars.
So yeah, I mean, it's just interesting that, like you said, they didn't mention the abuse from the father. They didn't have a problem with, a lot of the scenes in this book, but yeah, I mean, that our recommendation is clear that we think, this is a great cautionary tale for high school students. It aligns with the governor's sex trafficking education agenda.
Should be required reading.
Yes, and like we said with required reading, like, trigger warnings should be given to parents, and the parental, as a teacher, I can attest that the parental control is always there. And as a teacher, I would say, hey, this is a book that we're going to read in class. It deals with, mature themes. And if you don't want your child reading it, I'd be more than happy to come up with an alternative. And that's always been the case.
Yes. And the media specialists, they do the same thing.
Yes. The media specialists are great at that.
It's not like they're just handing out. I hate the way they portray it. Like they're out there, here, read this pornographic book,
Right.
I'm grooming you. No,
it's oh my gosh. But yeah, so this book is, we don't want to give away anything else, so we're not going to. There's so many. I dog-eared so many pages in this book that I don't want to read it though, because I want you to go out and read it.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's an easy read. It's written not in verse. What do you call this?
Prose.
So it's not hard to read. Very easy. I think, was this the book that they had an issue with because there were blank pages for the students to think about?
Notes?
Yes.
No, that was a different book. Although there are plenty of spaces for them to write down. Maybe that.
I think it was.
It was?
The Mom for Liberty lady kept saying there's blank pages so that they can write how they felt about the book. Right, and I was like, I don't see the problem. I don't see the problem.
Keep talking, Moms for Liberty. So yeah, like we said, we want you to go out and read this book. You won't be disappointed. We're not going to spoil the ending. We're just going to stop talking about it so we don't accidentally spoil the ending. But we did want to take some time to tell you about an organization called Deliver Fund, founded in 2014 by a former CIA agent and a former member of the U.S. Special Operations. I guess he's a Navy SEAL sniper. His name is Jeremy Mahue, I think, and Nick McKinley. They organized a foundation that uses counterterrorism methodology and tactics to identify human trafficking in illicit ads, all over, including America. And then they send actionable intelligence to law enforcement to try and, to save these girls from being trafficked. So
That's great.
yeah, so if you want to check out that organization and donate some money to them, it's deliverfund.org, and we'll put that in our show notes. And thank you to Pierre Tristam from Flagler Live for doing that research on that organization. But yeah, I mean, Jennifer, what's like your overall takeaway for this book being in libraries? And yeah.
Definitely, they deserve to say, I'm glad that in Flagler we did keep it.
I'm proud of that.
Yeah, we're very proud of that.
Flagler did something good, guys.
Finally, yes. But, it's still a fight because they keep trying to change the laws to make it harder to keep these books in schools. And we're not saying you have to read it again. Like, if you don't feel this is right for your kid, I'll say it again, that's fine, but don't take that right from other kids.
Right, and, speaking of what you said, trying to change the laws, like, there's a new mental health bill on the table, and I don't know how far it's gotten, but it's called a mental health bill, but hidden inside the bill, the language is trying to take out the third prong of the Miller test, which is literary value. And this book is chock full of literary value.
Right.
And if they take that out of the Miller test, then every single book would be banned.
The Bible?
The Bible. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on the Bible. Yeah, so many books are going to be banned. And the Bible has literary value. And, regardless of what your religion is, like, it's still it's a text.
Right.
That does deserve to be in the library, in my opinion. I
agree.
We should ban anything. But if we're going to ban this, then we're going to have to ban the Bible.
Exactly. Yeah, the Bible has so many chapters and verses in there that are very...
fun.
Yeah, very fun.
Super fun.
We actually had someone at a school board meeting try to read a passage, and the gasps from the people who were trying to ban books was funny.
The infamous Abby Cook.
Yes.
Who was fired for a TikTok video, but that's a whole nother episode that we'll get into.
A great teacher, by the way.
One of the best teachers ever, right? But she read this verse in Ezekiel, right?
Yes.
Something about donkeys.
It says, and lusted after her lovers there, whose members were like those of donkeys, and whose issue was like that of horses.
Oh, no.
And everybody was like, whoa, 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 you can't read that.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah, so they were basically saying, like, you can't read explicit material. Right. And so she's like, but this is like from a Bible that's in the library. So
and it's at your churches and you have your kids reading it.
Exactly.
It's in Sunday school.
Oh my gosh. I took my kid to Ollie's, that store. Ollie's.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we go there for cheap books, right? And so it was so random. He picked up this book. It was like a Lego book, and he didn't realize it was the Lego Bible. So they have the Lego Bible now, right? So it's just like Lego characters like that are in the Bible. And so he randomly flips open to like the middle of the Bible, and it's something about like all the virgins or something. Like he read the verse, and there were these like little Legos, and they were talking about like virgins in the Bible, because obviously that comes up a lot in the Bible. But like, I mean, it's just, you just gotta laugh about it,
There's some other ones in there that, there's a lot to read, but there's also the Song of Solomon. Oh, yeah. There's some passages there. One says, blow on my garden, that its fragrance may spread abroad. Let my lover come into his garden and taste its choice fruits.
All right. If that's
oral, right?
Yes, that's got to be cunnilingus. And let's just give a shout out to who wrote this
Solomon?
Solomon.
He's a freak.
No, but these are actually taken from a website called salon.com by Anna Pulley. So thanks for doing the research, Anna.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't want to read the whole Bible to get to this.
What else you got, Jennifer?
Another one is, and this one's funny. My beloved put his hand by the hole of the door, and my bowels were moved for him. So back door, right?
Which door are we talking about?
I'm guessing back door. That's my.
Oh my God, so, that's hilarious.
That's.
All right.
How do we explain that to the kids?
I don't know.
Not the high schoolers, so I'm sure they know.
They would come up with something creative for sure.
But, younger kids.
That's hilarious. speaking of Flagler's decision to keep sold, just to kind of recap what we talked about in the last episode, like basically you are who you align with. And in our last episode, we did we gave you a soundbite of the homophobic pastor that called out our superintendent for being gay, right?
Yes.
And people are pissed about that, right? Like they're so mad. What are they doing? They have a
Well, they started a petition, right?
Yeah.
To call out the Chamber of Commerce for their involvement
Yes.
in our school board elections and decisions, not elections. I'm sorry.
And,
Because why are they getting
Chamber of
involved?
Commerce so involved? I don't know. And why? More importantly, why are school board members
Listening to them.
why are they putting so much weight into it? So yeah, real quick, like the Chamber of Commerce has aligned themselves with a homophobic pastor, whether they think that or not. Like you have aligned yourselves with the homophobic pastor who called out our superintendent for being gay. So my question is for the following businessmen who signed this letter calling for our superintendent to be fired. John Walsh with the Palm Coast Observer, Howard Hawley with Evolve Magazine, and Joe Wright with Quantum Electric. It's my understanding that you signed your names on this letter to have Superintendent Middlestat fired. And so my question is, how is discriminating against queer people, such as our superintendent, going to make people want to move to Flagler?
Yeah, please let us know.
We don't know. And another question specifically for board member Sally Hunt, who has repeatedly told this story. Have you heard this story, Jennifer, of her husband needing a pacemaker during her campaign? Thankfully, he got the pacemaker that he needed because he had a really talented surgeon. But Sally tells this story at any chance that she gets, just so that she can say, well, the surgeon was really old and he's going to retire, and who's going to replace him? Well, that's a good question, Sally. What surgeon is going to move to Flagler, right?
Or Florida, for that matter.
Yeah. How are you going to attract younger, high-quality surgeons to do important things like give pacemakers if Flagler is labeled as a hateful and homophobic community? I just don't know. I don't know.
I don't see it happening.
And it's clearly not just Flagler, because literally as we are recording this podcast, Equality Florida and the NAACP just what they did, they just released advisory warnings for traveling and living in the state of Florida.
Yeah, they're saying don't come here. It's not a good place to be.
What else are they saying?
So they put out a letter, and Nadine Smith with Equality Florida Executive Director said, as an organization that has spent decades working to improve Florida's reputation as a welcoming and inclusive place to live, work, and visit, it is with great sadness that we must respond to those asking if it is safe to travel to Florida or remain in the state, as the laws strip away basic rights and freedom.
Oh my God.
And then they go on to say, Governor Ron DeSantis, who has made the extremist policies the centerpiece of his presidential campaign strategy, has weaponized state agencies to silence critics and impose sanctions on large and small companies that dissent with his culture war agenda or disagree with his attacks on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
That's just, it's becoming all too real.
Yeah.
And I think the NAACP even said, they compared it with, some of the boycotts that happened during the civil rights era. So.
And we're seeing Jim Crow laws come back.
With the voting and.
It's a scary time again.
I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was talking to one of my friends about it, and she said, it's almost like in Nazi Germany. It's like, how did, when you learn about that, you're like, how did that happen? How did people let that happen?
And we're seeing it happen again.
It just happens, all slowly and all at once is what she said. And I had to agree.
Yeah, it's scary because we're seeing it happening. We know where it's heading.
Right. And what can we do? I mean, we can just keep fighting, keep using our voices. But at the same time, we want to protect our kids.
Right.
It's just such a scary thought. So, I mean, this is why we did this podcast.
Right.
This is why we're doing this podcast. We're trying to help people understand that when you do things like sign your name on a letter calling for our superintendent to be fired for no reason, everyone came out and spoke in support of that superintendent, and she had the scores to show for it, and she was obviously a great superintendent. But those men that I mentioned earlier, those businessmen who signed their names on that letter by the Chamber of Commerce, like, do they realize that it appears that they're aligning with homophobic people?
I sometimes wonder. I don't think they do. I think they think they're being very innocent in what they're doing. They don't realize how that snowballs.
Yeah, because I know them personally, and I know them, individually, and they're good people. So, I don't want to sit here and call them out and say, "Hey, you're all homophobes," but like, I am disappointed.
Yeah, and what's that saying? Good people who stand by and do nothing.
Yeah, if it's something about being complicit. So it's like if you're complicit, you're basically on the enemies.
Exactly.
So we are nearing an end of our second episode.
Woohoo!
Thank you for sticking. Those of you that have stuck around, thank you for sticking with us and listening to episode number 2.
Yeah, we're really excited. I'm really excited that we got through our second episode.
Yeah. So we actually are kind of kicking around like a new idea here. I think we don't really have a name yet, but it's going to be like the PG version.
Yes. We're just going to read children's books. Obviously, they're all children's books, but like elementary school kids.
Yeah. So there's like the PG-13 version, which is what this episode was, PG-13.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe R, just depends. But like the books are PG-13.
Yeah, and it'll be safe for the kids to listen.
Yeah, this episode was not safe for the kids to listen to if you hadn't figured that out already. But, we won't curse on the kids version, right?
We'll keep it
I can't
PG
speak for Jennifer, but I will try. So on our first PG episode, we're going to cover the book Chick Chack Shabbat by Mara Rockcliffe and illustrated by Kristen Brooker. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Chick Chack Shabbat. And it is a picture book. And it is, we'll get into it in the next episode, but like it's about like a bunch of people that live in this apartment building, and they all come from different cultures, and they all have different recipes that they share with each other. Okay. So like there's a family from Italy that has a pizza recipe, and then there's this grandma, a Jewish grandma, who has a recipe for cholent, which is a Jewish soup, I believe. And anyway, it's a book about food. And it was banned in Volusia.
And I haven't read this one, so I'm interested to look and see what reasons they gave for banning it.
So you're going to have to tune into episode 3, the PG version for that. Yeah, it's
our little new, mini episodes?
Yeah. It's
mini series.
It's a mini episode. It'll be shorter. It'll be cleaner. It's safe for little ears. You can listen to it with your kids in the car.
Yeah.
We promise we won't ramble as much as we did in this episode.
We'll try at least.
We'll try, yeah.
Thanks for listening.
And remember,
only snowflakes censor books.